Let me tell you a story. This is a story set in the picturesque islands of the Philippines, played out across mountains, rivers, and seas. This is a story about struggle. This is a story about conflict. This is the story of biodiversity. Located in Southeast Asia, between the South China Sea and the Pacific Ocean, the Philippines consists of more than 7,200 geographically complex islands. Known as one of the most biodiverse countries in Southeast Asia, the Philippines is also home to thousands of endemic plant and animal species, both terrestrial and marine. Unfortunately, these natural treasures are all under threat. Using expert opinions from scientists and professionals, recorded footage, and external references, we will explore the issues regarding biodiversity in the Philippines. Welcome to the Philippines. So what is biodiversity? And why is it important?
Simply stated, biodiversity is the variety of life on Earth, including the places where they live, which we call ecosystem, like forests, seas, rivers. And not many people are aware of the values of biodiversity. We get our food, we get our materials for medicine, our clothing, even the livelihood of millions of people relying on biodiversity, like the fisher folks, the farmers, the materials we use for our house, raw materials from the business, various business, pharmaceuticals, everything. And as such, biodiversity is the web of life, meaning all things are interrelated. You just cannot protect one species and leave the other behind. So protection should be for everybody, so that there will be balance in nature.
The web of life is delicate, and humanity is destructive. No species is an island. We interact with one another in many ways, and most of them are not positive. Because of us, there are 5 main reasons for biodiversity loss. First, rampant deforestation. Second, overpopulation and poverty. Third, introduction of invasive species. Fourth, agricultural exploitation. And finally, illegal wildlife trading. It is with these threats in mind that we need to encourage biodiversity conservation.
So the environment is where we live in, and the environment provides us with air, with water, with food, shelter. So it's the lifeline. They need to know those things for them to know what is really important and what is important to them, that they have to survive and to live. If not for the environment, we'll not be enjoying all these things.
We don't use preservation, we don't just use conservation. It's really proper management, because you will have to use something. You know, you cannot just put everything in formaldehyde. You know, you cannot just put everything in museum as museum pieces, or you cannot just leave this forest stand alone. There has to have a certain utility for the user, who also is the conserver.
To help bring nature back into balance, there are initiatives to help facilitate the protection and restoration of natural sites and wildlife, such as those done by organizations like Wildlife in Need, otherwise known as WIN.
What we're doing is we rescue sick and injured animals. So sometimes there are concerned citizens that brought animals that they found, like, because this is a forest area. Subic is a forest area, so there's a lot of animals here. So most of the time, you can, especially after like typhoon, some of the tourists found animals along the road, or they can see inside of the, like, in the forest. They're going to pick them up and they bring here. WING is also like funding, or the partner of the PMMSN, the Philippine Marine Mammal Stranding Network. So it's a another project that helps stranded marine mammals. So it's like a partner. So if there's a stranded dolphin somewhere in around the Philippines, we also help, like giving medicine.
Another key player in conservation would be the forest rangers and the Aitas, who are the indigenous mountain people of the Philippines. The Aitas are involved in reforestation and education programs as part of an ongoing initiative to protect the forests they live in.
In 2004, we developed the PFCG, or the Pastoral Forest Conservation Group, and we already have planted many thousands of trees. I cannot count, but every year we have, for our group only, we have a target of 20,000 trees per year. The rangers, before, they have a regular patrolling in the forest. You see, if there is a presence of the law enforcement, they stop illegal work. But if they don't see police in uniform, something like that, they will start to do illegal things. So they have to do their work, to do their patrolling every time.
Only animals that are really kind of endangered are the flying bats, the flying fruit bat, because they told us that it's really declining in population because of hunting and forest, the habitat destruction. So we're kind of really protecting them with the hunters. And the Aitas are allowed to hunt. Most of them are educated. These are the native people. We told them that, yeah, I know that it's part of your culture to hunt, for your food, but we provide also work for them. Yeah, like some of our employees are Aitas, so some of them are educated already, and the government, they like teaching these people to get their food, not just by hunting only. The chicken and the pigs, this kind of stuff, and the farming.
The Aitas know the time for hunting. They are the one who teaches us during our research that during rainy season, the pig is fat and they don't, what do you call this? They don't mate. It's not production time. That's why hunting season is May to August during rainy season. After that, they have to stop, and they don't need to hunt anymore.
Despite conservation efforts, advocates are still plagued with challenges that have yet to be resolved. What is it exactly that is hindering us?
In general, the problem with the Philippines is still there are a lot of poor people that are very dependent on natural resources. A lot of the poor people are marginalized, meaning they don't have opportunities to get employment, for example, because they are not, well educated, or they live far from the cities. So they have no recourse but to move into the highlands or into the forests, cut them down, clear the area, burn the remaining trees, for example, so they can plant corn or cassava or yam. Yeah. So they have something to eat. It's really, a depressing state because we have a lot of those poor and poor families living in the protected areas themselves.
Anybody who will conserve something is because he has a potential use for it. Okay? Somebody who cuts off something will not have anything to go back to. And these are the usual problems, the cultures and all that. They only see the short term. We don't talk about sustainability. You just think about now. But if you are going to educate somebody, where you're going to advocate for conservation, you really have to get them thinking future.
Our challenge there is not merely to reduce biodiversity. The challenge is to integrate biodiversity and conservation in the total development process of a country. Not to look at conservation as a separate entity like when you construct something under the Ministry of Construction or Public Works, or when you build a hospital. Biodiversity should be integrated in all aspects of development in the country. The second challenge is putting resources to conservation itself. And the third challenge is convincing everybody to participate in conservation advocacy. It is not the sole turf of governments, Ministry for Environment, or environmental NGOs to advocate on conservation, but it's a duty of everybody because biodiversity loss does not affect a specific sector. It affects all sectors of society.
The road ahead is rocky and fraught with challenges, but with more and more people working to resolve them, there is hope for the future. Change begins within us. We have to start now. If not now, when?